Okay, so I'm just going to run through a few things. This first one, once again, we'll be bringing in a different type of logo. So if we go into Illustrator, this is the logo I have. And I want you to see what the difference is with this one is basically if I go into my layers, I named all the different sections. And you'll see why we do that in just a minute. So I've named every single section. You can see, oh, there's the T, I named T, see, and so on. And I got to this just by going to Window, Layers, or F7. And that pulls them up. I had to pull it open because by default it's like this, and I couldn't really see anything because everything's in groups. So I pulled it out like this. Then I'd select the whole thing, copy, go into Maya, create an SVG, and I'm going to paste that right in. And what you'll see is not only does it come over, but it actually, I mean, the colors are a little bit off, but I can adjust that in a second and make my own materials. The problem is just that they are so close to each other, they're just barely receded, and we want to add some depth to it. This is one that I already brought in and changed some things on it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So it's great, except they're almost flush with each other, and that's going to give us some rendering and drawing problems. You can see this flickering going on, and we don't want that. So if I select it and I go to SVG, all those names I created are now inside of here under Path. And what it can be like, oh, the outer border, I'm going to select that and adjust the position offset. Pull that back a bit. See. Inner border, let's pull that back a little bit. So you can see I'm giving it some depth now. That's really what I want to do is just kind of force these guys so that they are not flat with each other. I want there to be some depth like this is built. So if I have it like this, I actually do like that inverted, but we'll switch it back because in the original, it's a white background with the black frame, though I'm actually starting to really like this. It kind of, there's something kind of strong and pops out about it. I just have to think about what I would do with that background. But in either case, let me keep it that way. Anyway, so we have this. Now I'm going to go to, these are the breaks for the letters and such. And what I can do, if we grab like a whole path, you could see like, oh, there's that little guy. I forgot to name him. That's okay. I'm going to go to the gray large frame. That's the black. There we are. Pull this back a little bit so that it's still above the black frame, but it's popping, which will pull out this gray front just a little bit. Just a touch. And that actually works pretty well. So now this is popping out. And then I have to fix how these guys are. So I might just take the red small frame. That's that outer frame there. Let's see where that one is. Sometimes you just have to kind of dig for it. There it is. Pop you forward a little bit so that these guys are kind of staggering. See the red small frame. Let's move that forward a little bit. Not that far. It's a touch much. I moved them all to a 0.3, and you see now they're kind of flush with each other. That looks good. That's popping out quite nicely. And then I can decide on if I wanted to move these guys independently, but that actually looks pretty good. It's giving me some depth. Now, if I hold down spacebar, then I get this, which is called the hotbox. This is when they have hotbox controls, but basically this is all the menus I normally would have to dig inside of. And if I actually just I can go to create objects, I could do all sorts of stuff. But right now I've at least got my little logo lined up in here. If I look at my letters and they look like they're a little bit kind of jaggedy, then I'm just going to go to geometry, curve resolution, and boost that up to a 5, maybe even a 6, until it's basically where it needs to be so that those rounded letters look smoother. So a 7 looks like that's working pretty well. Sometimes you may have some weird stuff going on with the text, and if that's the case, then it might be a good idea just to create the text inside of Maya and bring it in and space it out to where you need it using the same font. Alrighty. And right now, since I brought it over with those SVG settings, we saw it brought over a lot of those colors. That's working really well. I've spaced them out. I've added a curve resolution. If I hit Alt B, or I believe it's Option B on the Mac, then we can see I can make that a black background. And once again, if I hold down my space bar and left mouse click, you notice there's these little white, little whatsy who's it's up here. And if I left mouse click up top and tell it to go to Hypershade Render Perspective, that's the top right. So I'm holding down my left space bar and my left mouse button, and I'm clicking right above the top menu between these two lines. And it changes my configuration to what's known as the Hypershade Render View. And what this is where I can make materials. And well, I do want to discuss that a little bit. But if I were to do a hardware 2.0 render, this is what it looks like, because it's just using these kind of sit-in default materials that are sitting there. And we could see that they're in here. There's a few of them. We're going to make our own. And if I go to Maya software and render, looks like this, because these materials are kind of weird. So I'd have to manually tell it which we're going to do, what these are. And we're not going to be using, most likely not going to be using Arnold, which is another renderer, and we see that Arnold's just like not liking anything, so that's okay. We're not going to use Arnold. Sorry, Arnold.